Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive? Today we're getting up close and personal with the world of food biotechnology.
It's more than just what's on your plate, right?
Hmm.
We're talking the science behind it all, and it's changing so fast, especially with plant-based everything these days.
Right, it's like food science fiction is becoming reality.
Exactly. It's a pretty exciting time to be a food detective, you could say.
Okay, you've definitely got my attention. We've been digging into some insights from RoleCatcher, this career development platform, and let me tell you, the life of a food biotechnologist is way more dynamic than I ever imagined.
It's a career that's really essential, though, when you think about it.
Absolutely. So, for everyone listening who maybe hasn't encountered this career path before, where do we even begin? What's the elevator pitch for a food biotechnologist?
Okay, so picture this. You go to the grocery store, right? You pick up your favorite snacks, ingredients, whatever.
Yum, snacks.
Right. But behind the scenes, there are these food detectives, these food biotechnologists, making sure everything on those shelves meets some really strict safety regulations.
So, they're like the unsung heroes of the grocery store.
Exactly. They're battling things we can't even see. Spoilage, foodborne pathogens. It's all about understanding the science behind keeping food safe.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It absolutely is,
Yeah.
but it's also incredibly rewarding.
I bet. So, where do these food detectives actually work? Is it all labs and test tubes?
Well, you'll definitely find them in labs, analyzing food samples for anything suspicious. But they're not confined to those four
Hmm.
walls. You might find them in offices, working on food safety protocols, or maybe even out in the field at food production plants.
So, it's a mix of hands on lab work and then making sure those findings translate to the real world.
Yeah, it's a dynamic field.
That's fascinating. So, what's the work environment really like? Paint us a picture.
Okay, imagine this. You're in a food production plant, decked out in a hairnet and lab coat, surrounded by the sights and smells of food production on a massive scale.
Okay, now I'm hungry.
Right. But you're not just there to enjoy the smells.
Yeah.
You're analyzing the entire process, making sure each step meets those strict safety protocols.
It sounds like it takes a certain kind of person to thrive in that environment. Someone who's okay with, well, maybe not always the most glamorous side of food production.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a strong stomach, that's for sure. But it's also about meticulous attention to detail. Remember, we're talking about the safety of the food we eat every single day.
No pressure, right?
Right. But for the right person, it's an incredibly rewarding field.
Okay, so for those who are intrigued and maybe a little less squeamish, what's the career path look like?
Well, like with a lot of science careers, it usually starts with hitting the books.
Makes sense, gotta have that knowledge base.
Right. So a bachelor's degree is typically the starting point, food science, biotechnology, microbiology, something along those lines.
So you're learning about all those tiny little things that can make or break our food.
Exactly. It's about understanding how those microorganisms work, the chemistry behind food preservation.
Okay, so you've graduated, you're all set. What's next?
So imagine this. You're fresh out of university, eager to make your mark. You might land a gig assisting senior scientists in a research lab.
Getting your hands dirty, so to speak.
Exactly. You might be analyzing food samples, looking for any signs of contamination, or maybe you're working at a food processing plant.
Making sure everything's running smoothly and safely.
Right. Ensuring those HACCP protocols are being followed to the letter.
Hold on, HACCP. Could you back that up a bit for our listeners who might not be familiar with the acronym?
Oh, absolutely. HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
It is, but it's a really important system. Basically, it's a way to identify and control any potential hazards in food production.
So, like, from the moment something leaves the farm to the moment it ends up on our plates.
Exactly. Every step of the way.
Wow, that's pretty comprehensive.
It has to be. We're talking about the safety of our food supply.
Seriously. So, in those early career stages, it sounds like you're getting a real taste of what food safety is all about.
Totally. And as you gain experience, you might even get to design your own research projects.
Okay, now we're talking. What kind of research?
Oh, all sorts. Maybe you're looking into a new food preservation technique or investigating a new type of packaging that keeps food fresher for longer.
I'm all about anything that keeps my snacks fresher longer.
Me too.
Eh,
Actually, one interesting area is pulsed electric fields.
Pulsed electric fields. That sounds intense.
It does, doesn't it? It's basically using short bursts of electricity to zap those pesky microorganisms that cause spoilage.
So, like a tiny little electric fence for bacteria?
Kind of, but the best part is that it doesn't affect the taste, texture, or nutritional value of the food.
That's amazing. Science is so cool. Okay, so you've conquered the research world. What's next on the food biotechnologist's career ladder?
Well, you might find yourself leading a team of researchers.
Fancy.
Or maybe you're working with government agencies on food safety policies.
Wow, now we're talking about really making a difference.
Right. It's a chance to use your knowledge to shape the future of food safety.
I love that. But not everyone's cut out for the academic or regulatory world. What about those who are more entrepreneurially minded?
You're absolutely right. And this is where things get really exciting. We're seeing a boom in food tech startups these days.
It seems like every day there's a new plant-based something or other on the market.
It's incredible, right? And food biotechnologists are playing a huge role in this food revolution.
So they're not just working in labs, they're out there creating the future of food.
Exactly. It's a really exciting time to be in the field.
All this talk about innovation and the future of food makes you wonder about the ethical side of things, too. Do food biotechnologists face any tough choices in their work?
That's a really important question. Ethical considerations are a huge part of this field, especially when you start thinking about genetic engineering and things like that.
It's true. The more we can do with science, the more important it is to ask ourselves, should we do it?
Absolutely. And those ethical discussions are ongoing in the world of food biotechnology.
It's a good reminder that even with something as essential as food, there's always more to consider than meets the eye. Or the stomach, I guess.
Exactly. And speaking of important considerations, let's talk salary.
Okay, let's talk about the dough. Pun intended.
Well, if you're passionate about food and science, you might be in luck because this field can really make your mouth water, financially speaking.
I was hoping you'd say that. So, spill the beans. What kind of numbers are we talking about?
Okay, so starting out, those entry-level positions, you're looking at around $40,000 to $60,000 a year, give or take.
That's not bad at all, especially for a job that's just the beginning of your career.
Exactly. As you gain experience, climb that ladder, you know?
Those numbers start looking tastier and tastier.
Exactly. Think more like $70,000, maybe even six figures if you're working on those cutting-edge projects.
Okay, now you're talking.
And for those at the very top, leading research teams, developing groundbreaking technologies, that kind of thing, you're looking at salaries upwards of $150,000.
Wow, that's a lot of dough. Pun intended, of course. But it's not all about the money, right?
Right, it's about the impact, making
Yeah.
a difference. This is about ensuring what we eat is safe and finding solutions to global food challenges.
So for those inspired to join the ranks, what advice would you give to someone just starting their food biotech journey?
Okay, first off, your resume needs to be sharp. Highlight those lab skills, sure, but don't forget about teamwork, problem solving. It's a collaborative field.
It's not enough to just be a science whiz. You got to play well with others.
Exactly. And network, network, network. Go to conferences, connect with people online, put yourself out there.
That's good advice for any career, really.
For sure. And when you land that interview, enthusiasm, let them see how much you love this stuff.
That passion is contagious, for sure. So much great advice. As we wrap up, I'm really struck by the breadth of this field, from the tiniest microorganisms to the potential for feeding the world.
It's incredible to think about the impact, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
So, for our listeners out there, whether they're students, career changers, or just food lovers, what's the one thing you hope they take away from our deep dive?
That food biotechnology is a field where you can really make a difference.
I love that.
Don't be afraid to dive in, experiment, ask questions. Bring your own flavor to the table.
On that delicious note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the fascinating world of food biotechnology.